The Flower Ornament Scripture, a translation of the Avatamsaka Sutra by Thomas Cleary. Homage to all past, future, and present Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Pacceka Buddhas, and Shravakas. Book 1. The Wonderful Adornments of the Leaders of the Worlds. Thus have I heard, at one time, the Buddha was in the land of Magadha, in a state of purity, at the sight of enlightenment. Having just realized true awareness, the ground was solid and firm, made of diamond, adorned with exquisite jeweled discs and myriad precious flowers, with pure clear crystals. The ocean of characteristics of the various colors appeared over an infinite extent. There were banners of precious stones, constantly emitting shining light and producing beautiful sounds. Nets of myriad gems and garlands of exquisitely scented flowers hung all around. The finest jewels appeared spontaneously, raining inexhaustible quantities of gems and beautiful flowers all over the earth. There were rows of jeweled trees, their branches and foliage lustrous and luxuriant. By the Buddha's spiritual power, he caused all the adornments of this enlightenment sight to be reflected therein. The tree of enlightenment was tall and outstanding. Its trunk was diamond. Its main boughs were lapis lazuli. Its branches and twigs were of various precious elements. The leaves, spreading in all directions, provided shade like clouds. The precious blossoms were of various colors. The branching twigs spread out their shadows. Also the fruits were jewels containing a blazing radiance. They were together with the flowers in great arrays. The entire circumference of the tree emanated light. Within the light there rained precious stones, and within each gem were enlightening beings, in great hosts like clouds, simultaneously appearing. Also, by virtue of the awesome spiritual power of the Buddha, the tree of enlightenment constantly gave forth sublime sounds, speaking various truths without end. The palace chamber in which the Buddha was situated was spacious and beautifully adorned. It extended throughout the 10 directions. It was made of jewels of various colors and was decorated with all kinds of precious flowers. The various adornments emanated lights like clouds. The masses of their reflections from within the palace formed banners. A boundless host of enlightening beings, the congregation at the sight of enlightenment, were all gathered there. By means of the ability to manifest the lights and inconceivable sounds of the Buddhas, they fashioned nets of the finest jewels, from which came forth all the realms of action of the spiritual powers of the Buddhas, and in which were reflected images of the abodes of all beings. Also, by virtue of the aid of the spiritual power of the Buddha, they embraced the entire cosmos in a single thought. Their lion seats were high, wide, and beautiful. The bases were made of jewels, their nets of lotus blossoms, their tableaus of pure, exquisite gemstones. They were adorned with various flowers of all colors. Their roofs, chambers, steps, and doors were adorned by the images of all things. The branches and fruits of jeweled trees surrounded them, arrayed at intervals. Clouds of radiance of jewels reflected each other. The Buddhists of the 10 directions conjured regal pearls, and exquisite jewels in the top knots of all the enlightening beings, all emanated light, which came and illuminated them. Furthermore, sustained by the spiritual power of all Buddhas, they expounded the vast perspective of the enlightened ones, their subtle tones extending afar, there being no place they did not reach. At that time, the Buddha, the world-honored one, in this setting, attained to supreme, correct awareness of all things. His knowledge entered into all times with complete equanimity. His body filled all worlds. His voice universally accorded with all lands in the 10 directions. Like space, which contains all forms, he made no discrimination among all objects, and as space extends everywhere, he entered all lands with equanimity. His body forever sat omnipresent in all sights of enlightenment. Among the host of enlightening beings, his awesome light shone clearly like the sun, emerging, illumining the world. The ocean of myriad virtues which he practiced in all times was thoroughly pure, and he constantly demonstrated the production of all the Buddha lands, their boundless forms and spheres of light, extending throughout the entire cosmos, equally and impartially. He expounded all truths like spreading great clouds. Each of his head tips was able to contain all worlds without interference, in each manifesting immeasurable spiritual powers, teaching and civilizing all sentient beings. His body extended throughout the 10 directions, yet without coming or going. His knowledge entered into all forms and realized the emptiness of things. All the miraculous displays of the Buddhas of past, present, and future were all seen in his light, and all the adornments of inconceivable eons were revealed. There were great enlightening beings, numerous as the atoms in 10 Buddha worlds surrounding him. Their names were universally good, Samantabhadra, light of the supreme lamp of universal virtue, lion banner of universal light, subtle light of flames of universal jewels, banner of oceans of qualities of universal sounds, realm of enlightenment of radiance of universal knowledge, banner of flowers of a top knot of universal jewels, pleasing voice of universal awareness, light of inexhaustible virtue of universal purity, mark of universal light, great brilliance of the light of the moon reflected in the ocean, undefiled treasury of light of oceans of cloud-like sounds, born of wisdom and adorned with virtue, great light of sovereign virtue, brave lotus top-knot, sun banner of clouds of universal knowledge, greatly persevering with indestructible courage, light banner of fragrant flames, deep beautiful sound of great enlightened virtue, born of wisdom with the light of great virtue. These and others were the leaders. They were as many as there are atoms in 10 Buddha worlds. These enlightening beings had all, in the past, accumulated roots of goodness along with Vairochana Buddha, and were all born from the ocean of roots of goodness of the Buddha. They had already fulfilled the various means of transcendence, and their wisdom eye was thoroughly clear. They observed all times with impartiality. They were thoroughly purified in all states of concentration. Their eloquence was oceanic, extensive, and inexhaustible. They possessed the qualities of Buddhahood, were dignified and honorable. They knew the faculties of sentient beings and taught them according to potential and necessity. They entered into the matrix of the cosmos. Their knowledge was non-discriminatory. They experienced the liberation of the Buddhas, exceedingly deep and immensely vast. They were able to enter into one stage according to technical expediency, yet maintain the virtues of all stages supported by the ocean of all vows, always accompanied by wisdom throughout the future. They had thoroughly comprehended the rarely attained vast secret realms of all Buddhas. They were familiar with the equal teachings of all Buddhas. They were already treading the Buddhist ground of universal light. They entered the doors of boundless oceans of concentrations. They manifested bodies in all places and participated in worldly activities. Their memory power was enormous, and they assembled the ocean of all the teachings. With intelligence, eloquence, and skill, they turned the wheel which never turns back. The vast ocean of virtuous qualities of all Buddhas entered entirely into their bodies. They went willingly to all the lands in which there were Buddhas. They had already made offerings to all Buddhas over boundless eons, joyfully and tirelessly. In all places when the Buddhas attained enlightenment, they were always there, approaching them and associating with them, never giving up. Always, by means of the vows of universal goodness and wisdom, they caused the wisdom body of all sentient beings to be fulfilled. They had perfected innumerable such virtues. There were also present thunderbolt-bearing spirits as numerous as atoms in the Buddha world, known as demigod of wonderful form, banner of swiftness of the sun, light of the flowers of the polar mountain, pure sound of clouds, sublime faculties, delightful light, sound of thunder in great trees, lion king light, auspicious eye of intense flames, jewel top-knot of lotus light. These were the leaders, and there were as many of them as there are atoms in the Buddha world. All of them had constantly invoked great vows over countless past eons, vowing to always draw near to and serve the Buddhas. Their practices in accord with their vows had already reached fulfillment, and they had reached the other shore. They had accumulated boundless pure good works. They had clearly arrived at all the realms of meditative absorption and had attained spiritual powers. They dwelled wherever a Buddha was and entered into the realm of inconceivable liberation, taking their place in the assembly. Their dignified light stood out. They manifested their bodies according to the needs of sentient beings and thereby pacified them. Wherever there were manifestations of Buddhas, they all went there magically. Wherever the Buddhas dwelt, they always diligently guarded and protected the place. There were also multiple body spirits, numerous as atoms in the Buddha world, known as flower top-knot adornment, light illumining all directions, oceanic sound conquering, pure flower adorned top-knot, infinite dignified postures, array of supreme light, fragrant clouds of pure light, guardian, sustainer, ubiquitous shepherd, immutable light. These were the leaders, There were as many as there are atoms in the Buddha world. They had all, in the past, fulfilled great vows and had provided for and served all the Buddhas. Also, there were footstep-following spirits, numerous as atoms in the Buddha world. Their leaders were known as precious symbol, lotus light, top knot or pure flowers, embodying all beautiful visions, exquisite gem star, banner, joyfully uttering sublime sounds, sandalwood tree light, lotus luminosity, subtle light, collection of fine flowers, and so on. Over innumerable past ages, they had all associated with Buddhas, always following them. There were also sanctuary spirits as numerous as atoms in the Buddha world. Their leaders were known as Banner of Pure Adornments, Polar Mountain Jewel Light, Sign of the Thunder Banner, Wonderful Eyes Raining Flowers, Garland Like Top Knot, Raining Jewel Arrays, Courageous Fragrant Eye, Diamond Colored Cloud, Lotus Light, Radiance of Ineffable Light, and so on. All of them had in the past met innumerable Buddhas, perfected their willpower, and brought forth extensive offerings. There were also city spirits, as numerous as atoms in the Buddha world. Their leaders were known as Jewel Peak Radiance, Beautifully Adorned Palace, Jewel of Pure Joy, Sorrowless Purity, Flower Lamp, Flame Eyes, Flame Banner Clearly Showing, Light of Virtue, Pure Light, Fragrant Top Knot Adornment, Beautiful Jewel Light, and so on. All of them had, over innumerable inconceivable eons, adorned the mansions in which the Buddha stayed. There were also earth spirits as numerous as atomic particles in the Buddha world. Their leaders were known as Pure Flower of Universal Virtue, Adornment of Stable Blessings, Beautiful Flower Adorned Tree, Universal Distributor of Treasures, Pure Eye Observing the Season, Beautiful Supreme Eye, Fragrant Hair Emitting Light, Pleasing Sound, Curled Top Knot of Beautiful Flowers, Diamond Adorned Body, and so on. They had all in the past made profound, brave vows, vowing to always associate with the Buddhas and cultivate the same virtuous acts.